musical phenomenon in Central Mass. Hasn't really broken out of that neighborhood. But I've always wanted to do a song of his, and this one really seemed particularly well suited. I've been living with it for a number of years and playing it, sort of working it up. So.
Yeah, all the others are written by you.
Except for the last one, Have Yourself a Merry Little
Christmas. Of course. Yeah, you didn't write that, did you?
Yeah, no.
That would have been a surprise to me.
One of the things they say in the music business is I liked your song so much, I went home and wrote it.
That's great.
That's right. Sadly true.
That's great. Now, Russ Titelman is a producer. Now, you worked with him, what, about 75 or 6, or way back then?
Yeah. Russ and I worked together on 2 Warner Brothers albums. He was a staff producer there for a long time. And we worked on In the Pocket and Gorilla. Those are the 2 albums we made, 2 of my favorite albums. And he also produced some of those early Ry Cooder records and Randy Newman records.
Well, speaking of Ry Cooder, he made it to here, didn't he?
He did. We got Ry on the track that was inspired by his playing. It was a sort of close the loop. It was good.
He's been a hero, musical hero of yours for forever.
Yeah, that's right.
Why?
He's such a source. He's a real musicologist. He's to start with. He's one of the guitar players. He has an amazing
guitar players. For James Taylor to say that says something. Guitar players.
Yeah, he really is. For me, he plays with his fingers a lot, and he plays very powerful guitar. It's extremely strong. Kind of old-timey, you'd call it roots maybe, or you'd call it ragtime. It's hard to say what it is. Actually, it comes from, this is kind of a detail, but a lot of it comes from this guy named Joseph Spence, I think, who was a Bahamian guitarist. But anyway.
I mean from the Bahamas?
From the Bahamas, yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, Ry is really important to me, and I've tried to, I picked up as much as I possibly could from his playing style. But, he also did the Buena Vista Social Club.
Right.
He did
Man, was that great.
Gabi Pai Nui, which is a Hawaiian slat key guitar. He did Flaco Jimenez, which was a sort of a Tex-Mex, a kind of an accordion player. Very, he follows these things down. He's passionate about
Now, how'd you get him into pick a little for you?
Well, as I said, Russ, who was producing this, had worked with him often, and actually Russ's sister is married to Ry, and he is in communication all the time.
Well, maybe we could get him in here.
So he got Ry a copy of the thing, and he came by and gave us a couple of passes on it.
Right. Which was the lead song, which was already released as a single, is on the 4th of July, which is not a patriotic song, it's a love song.
Yes, that's right. It just happens to be, it's set on the 4th of July, but that's right,
yeah. I mean, drawn from your love affair with your new wife, and
It is. It's not actually factual that we met on the 4th of July, but basically, let's just say all love songs are about Kim. So.
All love songs. and this great marriage between you and Kim, you have twins.
We do. We got
David and Rufus.
Henry and Rufus.
Henry and Rufus. I keep saying David.
Well, it's Henry David.
Oh, that's right.
Henry David and Rufus Logan. Yeah.
And Rufus Logan.
Yeah.
That's right. And so you now have a second family. Sally and Ben are in their 20s.
That's right.
And they're both singers.
They are. They're
musicians.
They're both in the thick of it now. Yeah. As we speak. Ben is just finishing rehearsals in Los Angeles and headed out on a southwestern leg. And Sally is just finished a tour of the Northeast this summer. So
I don't mean to inject some medicine into this, but do you believe this is genetic, or is it simply the fact that they were the parents and were of musicians, their parents were musicians and they were around musicians all the time, and so it sort of takes?
I think it's nurture and nature, sure. Both.
Some combination.
Yeah, a combination of things.
Do they sound like you, or does Sally sound like
like
mother?
as I sound like my brother and like my dad, they do. They sound like their mother and like me a little bit. It's an interesting mix. You can hear them both happening in there. Yeah.
My new fact about you that I know about you, having known you for a long, long, long time, is that your Isaac Taylor relatives, predecessors, ancestors, appear in Patrick O'Brien's novels.
Well, they do in one of his.
Okay, one.
Did you read those Patrick O'Brien
Yes.
novels? Boy, those got me. They hooked me in bad, those novels.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I ripped through them. I couldn't put them down for about a
This
year.
only appears in one.
Right. I think it's only in one. And he's, I think, referred to as a merchant shipper out of New Bern, North Carolina.
Right, where the boat landed or something.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Now, there is also, as you and I used to work for a brief summer with Ike Taylor, who was dean of the University of North Carolina Medical School. At that time, thinking I was going to go to medical school. Young James was over in England hanging out with the Beatles while I was doing this. There's also sadness. You know, what songs reflective of your own sense of the loss of Alex and your dad?
Well, you know, I think that there's my father comes up often in a version of him, or a sort of a sense of him comes up often in songs I write, and that's always been the case. And
Always, not just new for this album. It's always
yeah.
been.
There's a song called "My Traveling Star," which is about you know, just your basic wanderlust tune, and he's referred to in a way in that. And then in the last, the next to last song on the record, "Baby Buffalo." No, let's see. Well, yeah, that's right. That's sort of inspired by a couple of, you know, maybe a half a dozen hospital visits over the past couple of decades. You know, they just, to tell you the truth, I don't know really what the song is about. It happened in two very sort of. Part of it came to me in a dream, and another sort of in a very sort of trance-like place. But anyway, there's another song, "Carry Me on My Way," which talks in the last verse about my brother and my father. Yeah.
The loss of Alex must be one of the hardest things you've ever had to.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. For me, at any rate, I don't deal with these losses immediately. Or particularly emotionally to start with. They just sink in very slowly, you know, very, very slowly. Perhaps it's a defense thing or something, but it's only, you know, years afterwards almost 10 years afterwards now, that I begin to, you know, get him in focus again, and, you know.
Do you know why you have prevailed and why you have... someone once said that you, like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and sort of have gone from generation to generation. With each new generation, what is it?
Well, you know, most of it is just luck and just continuing. You just, you know, lucky to be alive and still, you know, relatively fit, and.
Well, you're in very good shape.
And also just the idea is that it just continues. It doesn't you know, have any particular goal or any you know. I think that's the right attitude, to try to be as grateful as you can for your good fortune, and to just continue, carry on.
Music's the best thing ever happened to you.
It is. It's the only thing I know how to do, for sure. And it is.
You know, it's the only thing you know how to do.
Yeah,
you
pretty
could
much.
Write. You could write.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It just it seems to come out in songs, and it's such an unconscious process. I have so little control over it. You know, it really does seem to just happen. Like, I hear them first, but that's it. You know. So.
How was it to have Sir Paul introduce you to the Hall of Fame?
It was great. Again, that was sort of like closing a loop, because really it was an amazing thing. I had struck out. A band had collapsed that I was in, and I had failed to get anything started here in the States.
We're talking about 68, so...
Yeah, well, we're talking about 67.
67, 68,
yeah, 66,
right.
67. And I had decided I would just travel some. I didn't know what else to do, you know. I had passed on going to college, and my folks didn't have any really good ideas about what I might do, and they staked me to a plane ticket to London, and I just thought I would travel and see what occurred to me. And Shortly after getting there, some friends of mine got very enthusiastic about my making a demo and trying to get a record deal, and I through a series of channels got this thing to Peter Asher, who had just signed on with Apple Records. They had just started looking for acts
Owned
to
by the
sign
Beatles.
themselves, but owned by the Beatles. So it was as if suddenly a door opened, and I was just sort of handed this key, and it was just.
I think history shows that you were the first artist signed by Apple Records.
History will show that I was. I was the first. I was the first.
Yeah, and so there, and how did it come out about that he agreed to introduce you to the Hall of Fame?
I wrote him a letter.
You wrote him a letter, see?
I wrote him a letter and said, if you happen to be passing through the city or can find an excuse to come over, it would be just, it would really be a great thing. So it was just on the off chance he'd agree to do it, and he did. So it was nice.
First line will say, James Taylor, songwriter.
First line on my tombstone.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I joke and say folk singer. Folk singer here dead in bizarre accident.
Yes.
But
you know what? You're gonna die at old age. I mean, you're gonna be still singing there at 90. It's true. You've been asked this 1,000 times, and I've never asked you, so I'm realizing it's a stupid question, but I'll ask it anyway.
I'll try to find a stupid answer.
Yeah,
Don't worry about a
try to
thing.
help me out.
Okay,
here.
yeah, right.
I mean, is there one song that means more to you than anything else?
There are a couple. There are a couple. Caroline, in my mind, when I wrote it, I knew I had something.
Yes, yes, yes.
It was very early on, and it was it did a job on me. It did some work for me, internal work for me. And when it was out there, and well, there's no better feeling, when one comes through and falls into place like that, and somehow solves a puzzle for you, in a way that's comes from inside of you, but it's outside. It's right outside. And so, if I had to choose one, I'd say that one.
I would too. God, I was asked the other day, sometime about, what was my favorite James Taylor, and I said, of course, I said Caroline on My Mind. I also Fire and Rain, in part because I also was reminded of that because on September 11th, right after it, and you
Right.
performed that.
Yeah, we were on the road that September and the October after it and November, and everything got deep. It was amazing to be performing. It was hard to go back out. A lot of the crew and band had families at home, and they didn't want to see their loved ones go, or it was a hard time to go back out. But it was a good idea. It was really good. And Fire and Rain started. It was somehow reanimated in a way. I don't know why exactly, but maybe it's just that it is a type of emotional connection that people were feeling. And like I said before, you had the feeling as though whereas, a month earlier things had been an inch deep and a mile wide, that suddenly everything that you touched or everything that you said or did just resonated way, way down deep, right down to the taproot somehow.
You say that, I think this is the best record I can make now. That's all you can say. If you can say that, then that's enough.
Yeah, we stuck with it for a long time, and just you have an idea of things when they start occurring as songs. You have an idealized picture of how they might sound, and then how that's actually realized, that can fall short of the mark. But in this case, I think we got close with a number of these tunes.
There are a few people that I just hope will allow me to call them a friend, and James Taylor is one of them. Thank you for
Thank you, Charlie.
Great to see
Appreciate
you.
that, you bet.
We are going to conclude with a performance, James Taylor.
Can't you just feel the moonshine? Ain't it like a friend of mine to hit me from behind? Ain't I gone to Carolina in my mind? Karen, she's a silver sun, you best walk her way and watch it shining. Watch her watch the morning come. A silver tear appearing now, I'm crying, ain't I gone to Carolina in my mind? Ain't no doubt in no one's mind that love's the finest thing around, and whisper something soft and kind. Hey baby, the sky's on fire, I'm dying, ain't I gone to Carolina in my mind? In my mind, I'm gone to Carolina. Can't you see the sunshine? Can't you just feel the moonshine? Ain't it just like a friend of mine hit me from behind? And I'm gone to Carolina in my mind. Dark and silent late last night, I think you might have heard the highway calling. East End flight and dogs at bright. Signs that might be omens say I'm going, gone to Carolina in my mind. It's with a holy host of others standing around me. Still I'm on the dark side of the road, and it looks like it goes on like this forever. You must forgive me if I'm gone to Carolina in my mind. In my mind, I'm gone to Carolina. Can't you see?